All right, awesome. I get to be here and have story time. It's story time. So if you need to grab a snack, a cup of tea for story time, feel free. And if there is a question along the way, I love interactive. So if you wave, we can talk together. My goal today is to tell you stories of creative community connections that I have either had the privilege to be the assistant on or to be able to hear the stories of from their pastors. As you hear all of this, you're going to go, whoa, I can't do all of that. That's right. I have compiled over many years from many churches creative community connections. So as you hear them, I want you to triage them. I want you to look through a filter of what is God calling me to do in my context. Because some of these will be these awesome ideas, but they won't reach the people you are called to reach. Those ideas you set to the side. As you listen to some of these ideas and there's one you go, that would be really fun, and you know my neighbor would really like that. Those are the ones you look at how to not copy and paste, but to adapt to your context. You're not going to go, okay, what's my playlist, my playbook, so I can go and replicate exactly. These are a catalyst, a spark, an idea. And that's why I want it to be interactive, because you may go, well, that idea sounds interesting. What if I did it this way? And for all of us to hear that and how you adapt it to where God has called you to be will drive our conversation forward. So let me begin with a time. Once upon a time, we charged people to come to church. All right, say that again. You can do that. Let me explain. What we did was we looked around, we said, what is going on in the world outside our church that people are choosing to come together to do and enjoying that we could do as a church? So we looked around and we looked around and we noticed in our community that people really like these paint and wine nights. Don't worry, we left part of it off. Remember, I said take the principle and adapt it to where you're at. So which part, okay, Jose, which part do you think we left off? The painting. You can read my mind. No, we left off the wine. We did sparkling cider. So what we did is we identified a teacher in our community, not a member of our church, but has a great gift for art and a great gift for painting. She was a teacher. She was able to communicate it. And so what we did is we set up downstairs tables with tablecloths. We went Dollar Tree tablecloths because we were going to have to throw them away as the paint went everywhere. We set up easels. We set up blank canvases, and we invited Val to come. And she set up her beautiful painting, and we all looked at it and said, I'm never going to be able to do that. But she had the gift of teaching. And we actually started sending out invitations, and we used Eventbrite to be able to register. And now, typically, we were seeing $50 to $60 for paint and wine night, and it may have had more done to do with the wine than the paint side of it. But we charged $15, and we offered childcare, and we had a snack. Because we weren't about making money, we were about allowing people to value what they were getting. Inviting them to value, and we did over a year, we did 12 of these events. We had 2 no-shows. And for each event, it cost us in the end about less than $100. And this is a couple. This is Dwayne and Natalie. They painted these pictures. This is what they did. They painted the same picture, and then you notice one of them just turned it upside down so it would go together. It looks complicated. I am good at drawing stick figures, but I did this, my version of it, because the teacher took us step by step. What was so neat is we ended up with half members and half community members. So people could bring their friends. So I had Jennifer who called up Christina and she said, hey, I'm going to a paint night. Do you want to come? I've got 3 kids, you've got 2, but they've got childcare. And so they came. And we had this community connection where we could talk to people and speak to people, and it was just low key. It was just community, a way to be together. Now, if I could go back, there was one edit I would make. At the end of it, I would offer a Bible study in a different room for people who would like to stay by for a 15-minute devotional. But I didn't do that, but you can decide what does it look like. We had a prayer box. People had a card at their station, and they would drop in prayer requests. And if they gave us their contact information, on that card, we would call them and pray with them. And each time they would give us they would register, we would remind them and tell them when the next one was. So we did this about every other month. We had a paint class. And it was only COVID that changed it. We were just starting to find out how to do it outside. I've seen people do this outside. Pastor Hazel Mariquin at the Sligo Church, she has done it outside so that they could still do it even with that adjustment. What does it look like in your context? The principle: have fun together. You need a mix of community and church members, so that there is that community connection that happens. So what do you think? Is there a question or a debrief we need to do on paint class? You'll talk to me later. Okay, all right. Now I'm going to suggest gourmet burgers from a sacred cow. Tyler says, uh-oh. This is church. This is the main worship hour. This is a church family gathered together on Sabbath morning at 11 a.m. Do you notice where we're at? This is the fellowship hall. Are we in pews? Are we in rows? We are intentionally around tables. This is messy church. Have any of you ever heard of messy church? Messy church was originally created over in England. So here's another principle. We steal ideas joyfully. We contacted them, have their permission to use the brand Messy Church since it was recognized, so our community would know what to expect when they came in, and our community actually knew what to expect more than the church members did. Messy church is where learning takes place hands-on. And so this is why they're sitting around tables. They're sitting around tables, they're all together, and in the middle of the table there are some leaves. This is fall, our first official one that we did, and our prayer exercise was very hands-on and very interactive. And they were invited to take a leaf, a silk leaf out of the middle of the table, and take a Sharpie and write on it their prayer request. And then we had this beautiful paper tree trunk that was on the wall that we wrote our prayer requests on, and then we put it up there, and we actually left it up for 2 months so people could come by and pray for the people who wrote their items on their leaf. Now, a mistake that I made was I did not test writing on the leaves with a Sharpie before I handed it over to my people. There was no tablecloth on the table. What do you think happened? So I did some cleaning and it all worked out. It's messy church. It's hands-on. It's the ability to learn in motion. I am one who loves to try things out, to jump in and to learn as we go. And I learn most when I'm able to try something out and experiment with it. And so this is the principle that we took to this. I was blessed with a church who had this flexibility in their DNA to try out something new. And I've seen Daniel Chisto in Potomac Conference at Charlottesville do this as well. He added a breakfast before and then did the hands-on activities. When Janine Little did this out in Lodi, California, she adapted it more for the little kids. This one is intergenerational. We wanted to make sure, not focused on kids, but that grandma and grandpa or aunts and uncles, everybody could learn together. One of the times that we did this, we made snow inside. These are my kids. They're a few years ago, aren't they? Oh, thank you, Ivan. I look at them, oh. These are my kids. What it is they are making snow. What does Isaiah tell us? Though your sin be as scarlet, it shall be as white as snow. And we were learning about forgiveness. And to allow it to be hands-on for people to be able to understand it from that concept, we handed out these plastic bowls, a little envelope that had instant snow, a cup that had a black line on it, and over on the side were pitchers of water. And so all the kids had to do, my son could take the cup over, he could pour the pitcher in there up to that line. If it spilled, it's water. And then he could take it back and mix it in this bowl, and they had snow. And just to see their eyes spark with creativity and understanding, you know, a snowflake is coalesced around a piece of dirt. The sin that is so ugly in our lives, God forgives. Though it be as scarlet, it shall be as white as snow. It is forgiven, it's covered, we are transformed into something beautiful in his hands. And we did these exercises all going toward a theme. And then we had the sermon time was only about 10 minutes long. But we wanted to have a hands-on prayer activity. We had a prayer activity, a hands-on learning activity. So when we did creation, we handed out clay and invited people to make something. Oh, that was fun. And then we applied it, what we had learned. And there's just something about we as leaders, when we have fun with what we're doing, it catches people's attention. And so the ability to have fun with worship, the ability to have fun as I connect with my community. This is another prayer activity that we did. This time we had colored paper traced around our hands and put on there the things that we were thankful for. And then we just took a clothespin and clipped them onto this string of lights. And that's what she's doing, is she's putting it up there. I was so thankful once my daughter wrote my mom for what she was thankful for. We were able to share together and to have that prayer time and to be able to have it there together later. This is another prayer activity. This one is built, this is Messy Church again, in a different church. What we have is, this is the River Jordan. The Israelites have just crossed over it, and they've been invited to go back and to pick up some rocks as a memorial to God's goodness. And so the kids are looking around to find their rock to make a memorial to God's goodness. I live in Richmond, Virginia. There's something called RVA Rocks. And what it is you take a rock, you paint on it, and then you hide it somewhere. And when someone finds it, they take a picture on social media, use that hashtag, and share, look what I found, and you try to find where the rock that you made is found. So on the back of each of these rocks, we have used Mod Podge to glue on a little piece of paper that has our church name and our hashtag. And the group would do this. This is them working. We had to find just the right markers that would draw on these rocks and stay there. And then we had to, as we moved along in the activity, the deacons went them out, sprayed them with sealant, let them dry for 20 minutes and brought them back, and then everyone took them and put them out in the community. What we did is we saw, what is our community doing? How can we be a part of it? We want to go where they are. We want to be beyond the walls. We don't want to just say, come to us, come to us, come to us. We wanted to go to them. So people brought their friends with them to the Messy Church, but then they took the rocks out, and it was fun to watch social media to see them showing up. You can tell that this is a picture that was taken in the church. Yeah, I kicked it and made the noise, sorry. Okay. This is taken in the church where we had done our prayer exercise with the hands. Now, this is a table that we would often set up in the church, because every time everybody walked in and saw this, they learned that exciting things would happen when we had this table set up. In the worship time, we would have this table set up. We would remove the cloth, the plastic, and then everyone go, ooh and ah. Because inside, underneath, are bins. And what is in this particular picture is there are personal toiletry products in each of the bins. So one bin has soap, one has shampoo, one has lotion, there's hand sanitizer in another, and on and on and on. And on each bin there is a number. And we had a bag that was labeled with our church and contact information. And what we would do is, during this gathering time, we would take 10 minutes and we would pack over 100 personal care kits. All you have to do is pick up the bag, open it up, go down the line. If it says 3, you put 3 in. If it's 2, you put 2. If it's 1, you put it in there. So from the oldest to the youngest, or the other way around, we were able to do this. And this is what it looks like. You'll notice those aren't personal care products because we enjoyed packing bags for different things. Yes, question. How often was Messy Church? Very good question. So at the last church I was at before I transitioned to office-based from church-based, once a month we had an atypical worship service. So once a quarter was Messy Church, once every 6 months was Compassion Sabbath, and that's coming up. There would be something that was not your traditional service once a month. That is the sustainable pace in my context. So what is the sustainable pace in your context is the question you're going to want to answer. Because when you look at this, these are how many volunteers I have. This is what energy they have to make this happen. This is the personality of my church and how much they need traditional versus creative. Your leadership team will decide what is that pattern. Back to the bags that we enjoyed packing. We had little vinyl plastic bags. We had canvas bags. And here they're packing activity kits for hospital waiting rooms. So you go down and you pick up, there's a sticker book, there's a lacing card, there's crayons, there's coloring, and there's all these things. And we had a relationship with a cancer care center down the street at the hospital. And so we would take these activity bags in. So when a mom or a dad comes in and they're there to receive care and they bring their kids along with them, now the person behind the desk can say, here's an activity bag for your child. We worked with someone we had a relationship with. You have the ability and the resources to make an impact if you're strategic. If we had wanted to give these activity bags out to everyone, it doesn't have the same emphasis or the same impact as when we worked with one cancer care center and had a relationship with them. But it allowed each person to have something hands-on, and whether they helped pack the kits and were part of the dedication prayer, or whether they went to deliver them, or they contacted that center to say, are you ready for more? There was a whole team that made it happen. Most of these activities, I was the assistant on, I was not the lead. Even though I was the pastor, I was the assistant or the attendee. You're a leader, you can't lead it all, but you can create a space and resources for those who have those gifts and those passions. The next, and the way that we initially funded it is we actually, where did Jose go? We actually applied for the Compassion Grant. There you are. That is the seed money that really was the catalyst for the revitalization there. So it only takes a little bit to start the ball rolling. It's that momentum that goes, what can God do when you do the little bit and a little bit and a little bit more? Where can God take your church when you're able to do these things? When you have the excitement that it generates. People had this expectation of what do we get to do next, and they would bring us ideas and ask for the resources so that they could make it happen. One of those annual events we did was Fall Festival. We discovered by looking at Percept, which is demographic information about our community, that October, November was the main time that people wanted to have connections with church. And so we decided we would have a fall festival. But we didn't want to just do any fall festival. We wanted climbing walls. We wanted obstacle courses. We wanted chili and cornbread. We wanted a trebuchet. Any of you know what a trebuchet is? Have you ever fired a trebuchet? This is a trebuchet.
Okay. Oh, are you count? All right, you count it down. Oh, you count. Are you ready, Eric?
Yeah, good.
Okay.
We're rolling.
All right, 3, 2, 1, pull.
Exactly. Pumpkin chunking. So we're not medieval trying to knock down the wall. We're trying to hit that target with a pumpkin that's about this big. It was fun. People would come out because they would, as we would share and invite people to come, they would want to come and try out the trebuchet, and then the kids would love to climb the climbing wall. We didn't charge for any of our of the activities that were there, from the games to the face painting to the trebuchet to the pumpkin decorating. We didn't charge for them, but if you wanted to get a hot dog, and yes, we had vegetarian and beef hot dogs, we did charge for those. But I always dreamed of what if we had just invited we did this on Sunday, what if we invited a local food truck to come and provide the food, and so now it's a recognizable food source rather than being our volunteers cooking and providing it. This is what it is. You get to do something and then you start dreaming of what could you do next? What would be the next adjustment that you would make? And I find that energizing and exciting. And one thing that we always made sure we did is we celebrated what God had done and what we had done to connect our community. So we would get together and all we would do would be celebrating. Look, we as a faith community connected with our community beyond our walls in this way, and let's celebrate it. Yes? Okay, yes. Ooh, that sounds good. Like you're saying, a bonfire in Montana, baked potatoes in the coals. You can hand out s'mores kits, a little Ziploc bag with everything you need to make that s'more. But I kind of like that baked potato option. What we found is families would come out because the kids would see the climbing wall and they want to go. And then we would have those in our community. There's a subdivision right behind the church, and there's a good number of people who are retirees who live there. They would be friends with some of our church members, and they would come and they would bring their folding chair and they would just sit there through the whole day because they just wanted to be around people. And we had a good time with them, and that they would talk and they would share. And it was fun. And at the end of the day, we were very tired, but it was awesome. The next thing I want to talk to you about is Compassion Sabbath. I said this is one of our atypical worship services. We went out and did random acts of kindness. Are you familiar with random acts of kindness? We decided that we wanted to invest our main community time in going out in our community. And so we had an amazing leader named Kelly who had this dream, and she would set up stations and clipboards, and people would go and sign up. Are you going to go and hand out flowers that a rose with a note of a Bible verse and our church contact information on it? Would you like to go and surprise people by paying for their gas at the gas station? Would you like to go? Different activities to surprise people with random acts of kindness and share with them that we did this in Jesus' name. And now I have a video for you as we interviewed people when they came back in from doing these activities. Hi, I'm Heather Cruz. I'm the pastor of the Courthouse Road Church in Richmond, Virginia. Today is a special day. There's this hum and this buzz of excitement in the church, and that's because it's Compassion Sabbath. This is the day we go and become the church beyond the walls. We dedicate our worship time hours, Sabbath morning, to go out and do random acts of kindness. And today I want you to hear some of those stories.
So we went to the gas station today. We got gas, we
This is
gave
Kelly,
people snacks,
the leader.
and we did a couple of other stuff, giving out flowers, and people were really happy, surprised, and appreciative.
It's just a way for us to kind of connect with the community, let them know that we're here, and to be able to give without any expectation of receiving.
And paid for lunches and just talked to people about Christ. It was kind of funny. We had some people who were shocked, and some people who turned down and said, no, buy it for the next person. And other people just didn't trust that we were going to buy them food. We did run into one lady who seemed to be having a little bit of a moment. She was already churched, but she wasn't sure about some things that were going on in her church, and she just felt like she needed God to reach out to her in some way, and so she felt like it was truly a God moment. Really wanted to sit and talk with us, and we prayed for her, and just had a great moment.
Yeah, she was our last lunch that we purchased that we thought we were done, and we really weren't.
We went to Starbucks and handed out flowers, and that was a lot of fun. They really enjoyed it. My favorite part was at Starbucks when we were handing out $5 gift cards. Then we had a nice little chat.
We go to the gas station and Wawa. We gave some flowers and also the roses. But if they're still inside and we knock on the door, they're like freaked out.
So one lady, Michael, went up to her and popped in and gave her a flower and just about gave her a heart attack. And then she looked at me and thought I was going to come and do something to her. And I asked her if I could pay for her gas, and she said, really? Why would you do that? Nobody does that. And then I told her, well, we're doing random acts of kindness in the community through our church. And she still was like, are you sure you're not going to charge me for something? And I said, no. And so afterwards, she was like, thank you so much. I'm sorry that I jumped. And I was kind of thinking, what are these people doing to me? But she said, thank you. It was such a blessing. So it was nice.
Memorial's nursing home, and we walked around and went to each room and delivered them the flowers and the puzzles and just saw the beautiful smiles on their faces and made their day.
It was actually really funny. When we first met, it was two ladies, and when she walked in, their faces lit up. And Asia got so excited and said, hey, would you like flowers? And they said, yeah, we'll take hats too. And it was just great. And they're trying to put the flowers with the hats, and it was kind of cool just to be able to interact with them and take pictures with them and share them about what we do here at our church.
The best stories that we hear from Jesus were not within the walls of the temple. It was when he was out in the community, touching lives, connecting with them, finding them. Woman at the well, he went there. It's like he was always out. Those are the best stories that you ever hear.
Pastor, I've been blessed. Today is my best day for the whole week. I
Amen.
enjoy doing this.
Did you get any smiles?
Lots of smiles.
So here's the important question. Would you do it again?
Oh, definitely. Most definitely.
All the work, all the prayer, would you do it again?
Oh, definitely.
So team, would you do it again?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Do it again.
Yes.
Paper ornaments to people in the hospital. And that's what you're starting to do. You're starting to say, what does it look like in your context? Each of the places we chose to establish a relationship. So a hospital that you have relationship with, to share that encouragement. You saw my son having a vest being put on him by a police officer. We had a relationship with the local police station, and so we went down and took them snack bags to take when they went on patrol, and pies to say thank you. And in that conversation, we discovered that there was a way that we could help them. When they went out on calls that involved children, they would like to take a stuffed animal to give to that child. We started providing those stuffed animals for them. And it was an ongoing relationship because they didn't want boxes of stuffed animals. They periodically wanted just a few. And so it was a regular contact as they would go and refresh the supply. That Victor would keep in touch and say, are you ready for more? And when they said yes, he would take over a few. And when they weren't, he would go, okay, I'll check back in a few weeks. We wanted to continue to build relationships, to surprise people with joy and with those random acts of kindness. And what you see on the screen are just a few ideas of what else could it be. Some of them I've been able to see executed, and some I've been involved with, and some are just dreams. The first one is just that, a Christian escape room. We had this dream, and we handed it over to a ministry leader, and he wasn't able to execute it. But what if you had an escape room that you were in Antioch, and you were Paul, and you had to figure out the puzzle so that you could be let down the wall in a basket and escape? What would it look like to have a Christian escape room and people could come to work those puzzles, to go through that process? Something that is exciting that people are choosing to go to in your community, they can do in your church, or you could borrow a room in a YMCA or another community center to set up that escape room. What about woodworking classes? Yes, you can charge people to come to your church. Our art classes started to expand. We had a rustic shelf that was built. We had a box that they built, and we had in place that a man was going to bring his lathe, and they were going to be able to create a knife and the handle that went on it. And we didn't just have to have the gifts to lead those classes inside of our church. We just identified people who had those gifts. Our initial art teacher was not even Christian, but she was interested in teaching art, and we had a relationship with her, and she came and taught our art classes and did a beautiful job. We had a healthy supper club, the ability to come together once a month and to bring the dish and the recipe, and everybody could go around and try what they wanted. It was healthy supper club, so it was vegan, and they brought the recipe. How's that for taking off the stress about what am I about to taste? And as people came together, this happened. The Healthy Supper Club, Marjorie Frakes led that in Keene, Texas. There's just so many ideas here, and I looked at the clock, and so I'm hoping that as we move to questions and have a few minutes of those dialogue, that this has sparked your creativity. Not that you're saying, I need to do all of that, but that I can do one of those, and what would it look like in my context? So what questions do you have? And it is time that we can spend a minute doing that.
I'm going to walk around with the roving mic. That was good stuff, yes? These are really great ideas. I like the idea of messy church. Kind of just sitting around what you're doing here, but in the fellowship hall. I'm going to rove around here with this microphone, and let me know if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Heather. Or let me ask you a question as you think about your question. Which one of those creative ideas up there would you like to implement in your local church? Oh, we've got Tim right over here.
Well, I just want to affirm, Heather, in how your church engaged the police force in the community and had a relationship with them. Because there are times when our communities go through crisis, and being in a relationship with them and have a close enough relationship with them that when the crisis might occur in your community, you have the relationship to be able to ask some tough questions and can help hold each other and the community accountable. And when you have that relationship, it's a whole lot easier to have tough questions about what's best for the community. As opposed to just a stranger showing up when a crisis occurs. So I just want to commend you for that.
And would you give a thumbnail of the garden that you did with that Beltsville Church did?
Yeah, so we had a relationship with the police in our community, and we went to the police and asked, what can we do to serve you? And they had a yard in the back of their police station that was just an old yard that was ugly. And they said it'd be great if we could have this to be a really nice, patio and retreat area. And we said, we'll do that. We'll take care of that. They really didn't think we would do that. So we came in and we completely cleaned it up, built a nice patio. They asked the patio be in the shape of a cross. So we put this big cross-shaped patio and a huge barbecue grill and picnic tables and everything else. And that began our relationship with them to where we could eventually. We still have that relationship, but we could talk about issues of human trafficking in the community, an issue of racial justice in the community, and issues of crime in the community, and et cetera. So that began that relationship.
And what I think is so beautiful, Tim, what you did is you went and said, how can we help? You didn't say, this is what we're going to do to you, for you. You said, what is the need that you have and how can we meet it? And that's another principle as we choose to engage and meet those needs of compassions in our community and build those relationships. Give them the dignity and the justice of saying, what can we do?
Does church have to look the same way every week? I mean, we've traditionally sat in pews and almost been spectators. It's a spectator sport. But I like that idea of getting people involved. Is that okay to get people involved in church, or do we have to follow the traditional spectator approach? There you go, David.
I noticed that this is pre-COVID time, that those things occurred. How do you adjust for today?
Mm-hmm. You take the principle and you adapt it. If you're looking at an art class, now you do it outside. The knife making project with the lathe was already designed to be outside in the back property of our church where we had space, so that could go on. When you're looking at a Christian escape room, that's uniquely designed for a COVID world, because you go in with your group and your group only to work together to work the puzzles. And our MOPS group, which is mothers of preschoolers, previously it was the moms would have a meeting in one area and then the kids would be in childcare. They just turned it into a play date outside. So, and MOPS and Moms Next is a nationally recognized community, non-Adventist but Christian, that you can contact and host a chapter in your church. So it's minor adjustments, but I do believe that these things can take place. So messy church, my activities would still be hands-on, but I probably wouldn't include the try a new fruit platter that we did just before COVID went down, where we talked about healthy eating, and then we let them try dragon fruit and star fruit and things they hadn't tried before. I would probably do that outside now instead of inside. So those principles you would adapt to.
Oh, we've got a question down here in the front.
No, just to add to the COVID thing, we do something called Art at the Park that is very similar. So we have worship service and we have a big park right behind the church. So we go, we bring crafts and things, and we put it there. And then people that are walking by, including kids, they just approach us and they can do it outside. And that works pretty good.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And you're currently working at Refuge, a plant of a few years now, and he's the local lay leader there. What do you do, Pastor Cruz, if a church isn't used to doing these things and they're very kind of stuck in the traditional? Did you receive any pushback when you first said, "Hey, I got an idea, let's do this," instead of the traditional church? When you got pushback, how did you pivot?
How do you pivot? Well, the first time I did Messy Church, part of the pushback was my fault. I didn't communicate enough to people about what they would expect. So the communication, the listening would be very important. Where it was is we had the whole church set up. I had been talking about Messy Family Church, and everyone came in, and I started noticing that my older folks were sitting on the wall or waiting out in the foyer, and I went up and I said, "Elaine, so why are you here? There's activities that we're going to do." And she thought it was family church. She wasn't there with her family, that she wasn't involved. So communication. And again, it's going to be wisdom to be able to do a little bit at a time. So you may not jump straight to a Messy Church on Sabbath morning, but what if you had an activity, and you may not jump straight to a Compassion Sabbath on Sabbath morning, but what if you had a few activities on Sabbath afternoon that people could go and do? And then you could report. And one thing we did, we handed out money in church. Charge people to come, hand out money. All right, it was fabulous. I held up 3 $20 bills and I said, "Who wants $20? What would you say? Yeah. I said, there's two catches. You have to use it to share Jesus' love in a tangible way, and you have to come back next week and tell us what you did. Ooh. And this was part of that catalyst to start people conceiving of what they could do. And so we had one young lady named Molly, who volunteered, and she went, and when she was in the grocery store, she noticed that if she gave it to a food bank, they could give all of this food. And so that's what she did. And we had another person who just started researching, and they came back and they did the report. And it's telling those stories. And while I'm telling stories, the goal is to say, it's possible. There are so many things we can do. So this would be my challenge, is you decide how to apply this in your context. Tell the story. It's not to pat yourself on the back. It's to celebrate what God did and to be a catalyst for someone else to spark their creativity. So send the story to the NAD. We have an NAD Best Practices newsletter. Each of your conferences, unions, you have newsletters, you have papers. Share it with them so that it can be celebrated what God did, and then see how God will adjust it and transform it. I mean, you're already talking about Fall Festival and baked potatoes. You've already adapted it. You're looking at how do you apply these in your context. Don't expect yourself to suddenly be able to do an atypical service once a month. Say, let's try something out. And that's one of the things we've learned in COVID. Let's try it. I've given you the list of things that worked well, but I could give you a list of things that just didn't work. And they were a great idea in my head or my leader's head, but we tried them. And so the ability to say, let's talk, let's try some out, and if it's not effective to get to the mission we need to, then we'll adapt.
You know, one of the benefits of COVID is it's given us a great opportunity to try new things, right? And if it doesn't work, we can blame COVID.
Yeah. Go for it. COVID can handle it.
We can blame COVID. We're going to take time for just one more question if there is one, and if not, I want to be able to invite Steve. Let me ask you this as Steve comes up. Out of the things that were up on the screen, raise your hand if you think these are doable in your church. If you think you could do this in your church. Let me see you raise your hand. Oh, very good. Lots of hands have gone up.